G'day and welcome back to Reality Check. Now, as many of our frequent flyer Reality Check listeners and viewers will know, there's one thing I've long had a special interest in. It's the idea behind creative inspiration. Where do scientists, artists, writers get their great ideas from? About a year ago, I went to a conference in Barcelona, Spain, where two of the world's top scientists on consciousness, Sir Roger Penrose and also Dr. Stuart Hameroff, explored the idea of non-local consciousness, the idea that the human brain is in fact not just a meat sack full of neurons that processes and makes us have the illusion of consciousness, but that we are perhaps tapping in, perhaps through our pineal gland, into a broader unitary consciousness from which, perhaps, we derive many of our ideas. Now, this idea of downloads is one that runs through science and creativity over many hundreds of years. I'm fascinated by it. Friedrich Kekule, the chemist who conceived the benzene ring, in a dream, he described dozing by the fire and seeing a vision of a snake biting its tail, and hence the shape of benzene. Nikola Tesla, the inventor of alternating current. Tesla claimed that many of his inventions, including the AC motor, came to him in mental visions, vivid mental visions or intuitive downloads. While walking in a park in Budapest, he visualized a rotating magnetic field, which led to the development of the AC induction motor. And when you hear what Tesla said at the time, he described this process, quote, "The motors I built there were exactly as I imagined them. I made no attempt to improve the design, but merely reproduced the pictures as they appeared to my vision." And he's not the only one. One of my other favourites is Srinivasa Ramanujan, a brilliant Indian mathematician who attributed his profound mathematical genius to divine inspiration from an Indian goddess called Namagiri. He claimed she appeared to him in dreams, presenting him with formulas and theorems, such as those related to the infinite series and partition functions. He said, quote, "While asleep, I had an unusual experience. There was a red screen formed by flowing blood. As it were, I was observing the numbers. An equation appeared. I woke up and wrote it down." And then one of my favourites, Paul McCartney. He woke up from a long sleep, a beautiful dream, and wrote out the melody for Yesterday, that wonderful song. And he said, "I woke up with a lovely tune in my head. I thought, that's great. I wonder what that is. I went to the piano and found the chords to it. It was all there." So where the hell is this coming from? Are we just biological meat sacks that develop a consciousness because of neurons in our brain? Or are humans plugged into something else? That's the idea we're exploring today. And I'm very excited because about, 2 years ago, I started talking about the idea that a lot of people were telling me in emails that they were getting downloads. In fact, they were having communications with beings. I actually said on occasion that some of these beings were appearing to people as if they were blue, some kind of blue haze or blue skin. I called them the blue guys. I have to admit I was being pretty flippant at the time, but I really wasn't prepared for the degree of response that I got from my wonderful audience. I have been besieged by people telling me about their downloads from the blue guys. And one of them, John Sear, I'm pleased to welcome today. John Sear is a Brit, and he sent me his book about a year ago after he'd heard what I'd been talking about. His book is called Told: Messages from a Greater Consciousness, or the Ramblings of a Madman. John Sear, that's your pen name. That's not your real name, but I'm
Yes,
pleased to welcome you here today to Reality Check.
Iris.
Tell me, sir, are you a madman or are you really receiving intuitive downloads from somewhere else?
Well, that's the question, I think, isn't it? Um, what I try and do when I'm explaining these messages I think I'm getting is to ask people to just look at them as theories. I don't try and preach them because you have to be very careful with these things and not be over the top and pushy and for yourself, let alone anybody else. Um,
Well,
and just
let me
explain what
start.
you.
Let me start. I want to take you through very quickly, John, to one of the things that I've found characterizes a lot of the people that tell me that they're having these connections is the fact that they've died or they've had near death experiences. And what really made
Yeah.
me sit up when you first told me your story was you had an NDE, a near death experience, when you were a 9-year-old boy. Can you tell me that story?
I think it's also important that it was from a head injury, and head injuries. If you look at the amount of people that have head injuries, and something amazing happens after that for them for the rest of their lives, you'd be astonished how many are linked to head injuries. And mine was a serious head injury. I don't know whether you can. I mean, I'm. This was when I was 9, and I'm now in my 60s, so it's healed a lot. Had a long time to heal, but I can still put my finger in the dent. And obviously, when it happened when I was 9, it was a lot deeper, and my head was all smashed up, and I went
So
into a coma.
tell me
It
what
was a
happened.
serious one. Well, okay, I don't actually put that in the book because I try not to explain too much because it can identify me more with people. But I was actually hit by a golf club accidentally, and it basically well, the doctor said that really I shouldn't have lived through it. I should have brain damage, and really a normal head would have not taken it. And my brother jokingly said that's because he's thick. It was typical brother, but I basically got through it. But I went into a coma for quite a long time, and I had an experience in that coma of dying. Do you want me to tell you that now? Do you want me to
I
tell you what
do.
happened?
Yeah, I want
Okay.
the detail of what you
Um,
were told. I think it's very important.
right. I basically could see myself in my bed. I was looking down on myself in my bed with the machinery to the left, nurses walking by. And then the next minute, um, I went into a place of white. There's no ceiling, no floor, no sides, just white everywhere. And it was really nice. It was beautiful feeling all around me. It was just like love everywhere. I have to say, it's the only thing I can describe it as. And to my left, there was a very, very bright light. It was even brighter to my left, and that was drawing me. And that had an even stronger feeling of love and kindness and care to my left. And I wanted to walk towards it. I wasn't frightened. I was 9, so you sort of bounce off things anyway, don't you? But I wasn't frightened at all. It was just happening to me, and I wasn't concerned. And I just wanted to move to the light on the white light on my left. Although everything was white, this was a deeper white. And then an entity came to me and said, "You have to go back." And I said, "Well, I love my mother. I had a lovely life, but there was something even more drawing by this from this light." And I said to the entity, "I don't want to go back. I want to stay." And it said, "No, you have things to do. I'm sorry. You have things to do. You have to go back." And then the next minute, I was waking up, and nurse is running about shouting he's awake. And um, so that was that.
So now the intuitive downloads that you've described so well in your book,
Yes.
Told, they didn't start at that stage, did they?
Not really. I don't remember any. I don't remember. Maybe they did, but I don't remember anything particularly happening.
Now, the reason why I was particularly interested in the near death experience is I'm astonished by how many people I've spoken to, soldiers particularly, often who've had close to death experiences where there's been a thinning of the veil, if you like, between death and life. And there's something about that that seems to trigger a receptivity to whatever this is. And I'm interested in exploring that. Let's roll forward. I think you were 16 years
I can
old
help there a
and you,
little bit. I can help a little bit with that. Sorry, is I think that it opens your um, ability to accept more that we're not just food for worms.
I think that's probably very true.
That
Yeah.
nothing shocked me after that. Everything was just possible after that. It's the one difference, even from nine.
And I'm
Um,
remiss in not asking you, was the entity that you encountered, were they something that you saw visually with your eyes, or was it something that was just a sense of an entity at that time?
it was a teenage boy,
And was it a color?
an older teenage boy that I would feel comfortable with.
And so you didn't see the shape of the entity or the being or anything like that.
No, no,
Okay.
he was there, and I know what he was, but I didn't see anybody.
I think you're right, John. The idea that maybe the near death experience flicked a switch in your brain. I'm quite amazed. I've spent a lot of time covering nasty wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, East Timor. And when you talk to soldiers who've been in horrible near death situations, combat or where they've been grievously wounded, there's often a spiritual philosophy, a kind of a devil may care attitude that comes out of what they've experienced. They they're not scared of life anymore. They embrace it.
No.
So let's roll forward. Let's go forward. I think it's around about 1980, as I recall. You've
Right.
joined the Royal Navy. Where are you
No.
serving, and how long are you signed up for?
Um, I was a junior at the time, so you only sign up for a short period of time, and that comes into the next conversation, the third thing that happened to me. But basically, I was on board a warship when this happened, and I can explain. Well, the best thing to do is just explain to you what happened on the warship.
Sure.
Um, my duties. I don't want to sort of get into what branch I was in because obviously I'm very wary of um, being careful with national security, as you are. I don't want to mention the name of the ship. I won't mention the crew, or certainly not the skipper's name. Be a bit delicate about. I mean, I have to say where we were, but not give too much information about the ship that I was on, because obviously I want to be loyal to the Royal Navy, which still does a great job. But this is a personal thing that happened to me, so that's why I'm talking about it. My duties One of my duties on my watch was to go up to the bridge to check a certain piece of equipment. And as I was walking into the bridge, there's a radio operator's room on your right as you're walking into the bridge, and it's curtained because obviously there's radars in there, and it has to stay dark. Okay, and the curtain must have been slightly open, and the lad, my mate that was in there, saw me walking past, and he beckoned me in. Come here, look at this. I just want to do it. He said, "Oh, come on, come on." So I went in and had a look, and I looked on the radar, and on the radar was a white blip on the radar, and he said, just come in, just come in, look at that." He said, "Come in, have a look." So, first of all, it was showing up on the radar, which is important for your research, that it's a solid object because it's obviously being picked up by the radar. Okay. So I went and had a look, shut the curtain, went and had a look on the bridge. And at what I saw, to the port bow, about a mile off, sitting I would say it was about 100 foot off the surface of the. I have to say that the sea was very, very calm, very unusual for the North Atlantic. We were in the North Atlantic, a few hours north of Scotland, and it was flat as a mill pond. As you hardly ever see it like that, and it was moonlight. It was beautiful. It was just flat. And on the port bow, about a mile off, was what I can only describe as being a star, but with a little. I drew it for my book. I don't know whether you can see, but that's what it looked like. It was a star with a disc, a white bright disc in the middle of the star, and um, obviously I was mesmerised by this blooming thing. And the next thing that happened was the younger officers called the skipper up to the bridge. So he came up, and when he came up, the first thing I noticed was that he wasn't at all surprised. He looked at it and just went like he'd seen them before. Right? Everybody else hadn't, by the way. Um, and then the next thing he did was ask them to contact the civilian um, airports, airdromes, and ask if there's any civilian aircraft in the area. They came back and said there's no civilian aircrafts in the area at all. He then contacted the military bases, the nearest military bases in Scotland, and they came back and said there's no military craft in the area. He immediately then, once he'd heard that, asked for air support. He then put the ship into action stations, which is, it gets a bit serious then. Everything gets locked down, getting ready for just in case something happens. And he then started turning the ship slowly towards the light and instructed the chap that was driving the ship to turn slowly towards the light. I then went to the right-hand side of the bridge. In those days, there was a door on the left of the bridge and a door on the right side of the bridge. And I went to the right-hand side one and started watching through the window to waiting for the planes to come. I don't know how long it was. I don't think it was that long. Probably 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And two dots appeared through the window, and it was the jets coming, the fighters coming, and they got to us really quick. I'd seen, obviously I'd seen, even I'd only been in there about it's just coming up 17, so I'd only been in just less than a year, but I had seen a lot of aircraft, but I'd never seen two aircraft moving at this speed. They were definitely flat out, and they came round the starboard side of the warship, and they were sort of one ahead, just like that, and they were banking round. Tremendous noise, and they were banking round the side of the ship. And as the ship then started to point towards the light, and the aircraft got, I would guess, about a quarter of a mile away from the light. The light, or UFO, basically it just went gone and into a 45-degree angle. It just went, and the only reason I knew that it had gone into a 45-degree angle, that it had gone somewhere, was because it left a vapor trail as far as you could see into the sky. That's it. It was just gone like that, a vapor trail.
So it was almost instantaneous movement.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it hadn't been for the vapor trail, I would have thought it just disappeared. It was that quick.
And in the moments before the jets arrived, you and I have spoken before about something that happened on the bridge. You became aware of something. Tell me that.
Let me tell you the last bit of that, and then I'll go back to that. what happened was, as the jets, if you don't mind, as the jets got close to the craft and the craft went, the lead pilot said, "Jesus Christ, it's gone, it's gone." And then they turned around and came along the port side of the ship.
The UFO did.
No, no,
The jet.
the jet, sorry, came. They had gone, so they just turned around, and then they came round the port side of the warship. And as they were coming around the port side of the warship, the skipper contacted them and said, "Can we confirm an unidentified? That this is Captain from HMS. Can we confirm an unidentified flying object?" And the lead pilot uh, radioed back, "We can confirm. We can confirm an unidentified flying object." And at that moment, you could hear cheers everywhere outside the bridge. There's more people out there than there should have been. Cheers down the stairs, cheers everywhere. It's fantastic. Going back, in the time that I was standing looking out the back, something else was going on. I could feel when you're in the woods and you think somebody's watching you, times that by 20. I could feel that there was a presence in the craft, and that it was it was almost like we were being scanned on the bridge. It wasn't almost like it was we were being scanned on the bridge, but it wasn't a normal thing that you'd expect in a sci-fi movie. I felt as though they were looking for something, and I then got a flash of a face of one of the inhabitants. I then wondered what the hell. No, before I got the flash, I thought, what the hell are you? What are you? And then I got the flash of the face, and then I was told, clear as day, "We are your children's children. We are your children. We are from the sea and sky." And then I just felt a tremendous amount of love that reminded me of the entity when I died. That kind of level, that strong, really nice, humbling.
And so you're in no doubt that whatever this scanning was, it was coming from the object, the disk star-like object that was
Yeah,
at that time about a mile distant to the
it's one of the
in
strongest
front of the ship.
beliefs I have. Yeah, I feel like I know it. It was coming from that.
Did the men on the ship talk about the fact that there'd been this weird encounter, that they'd had this psychical connection, or was it only you that had that psychical connection?
I was 16 on a ship in the 80s. It's a rough, tough place. It's not something you go and have a chat about afterwards. It's not something you share. Yeah, especially at 16. When you're 16, 26-year-olds are twice your size. You know.
And so, as the ship kept on going, was there any response by the captain to what people had seen? Were you told to shut up about it? Was there any order
There
given
was
about the
nothing
object?
said at all. Nothing said at all. We went back down, apart from one thing. We went down to the rec space to have a cup of tea afterwards, all sort of chatting about it and stuff. And the skipper then tannoyed over something cryptic. He doesn't normally like this. He normally told you straight, sure about something or whatever. But this time he just said, "This is your captain speaking. What you have just seen, you have not. Over." And I was like, "What?" I didn't really get it. I think the older guys must have got what that meant, but I was 16 and said to the other guy, "What's it mean?" "I did see it." I said, "Yeah, no, I saw it too." And that was it. But what you have just seen, you have not. It was hilarious, actually. A funny bit was there was two lads sitting on on the dining table arguing about what the aeroplanes were, which type of aeroplane they were. And I thought to myself then, it's strange when something incredible like this happens that people don't take it in. Some people take it in and just go, other people just carry on, and some people just don't get it. I thought to myself, why are you arguing over what aeroplanes they were? When you just seen a UFO.
Could the object that you saw, could it have been something from a foreign adversary, a Russian, Chinese, I don't know, could it have been some craft that was of Earth construction, or do you think it was non-human?
Oh, it was non-human. I got a vision of the people in it. It was the speed, Ross, that it went. We've got nothing like that in the 80s. You know,
And what did you
it
see when
was
you say you
so
saw
fast.
when you say you saw the entities? What did you see?
I saw a face that
Human?
basically tried to do it in the book. I've drawn the front cover myself, um, because AI just couldn't get close. So I just drawn the cover myself. Um, it's basically what we think of as the grey.
Okay, so it's the big head, big eyes,
Bigger
the
head,
classic
big eyes.
Whitley Strieber
Yeah.
communion grey shaped face.
What I eventually have been told is what we end up evolving to. It's our children.
Okay, so were there any other UAP incidents while you were in the Navy?
No, never again.
Now, what I find intriguing is the years go by. I think you end up signing up for a longer contract. There's this kind of agreement that you'd signed with the Royal Navy, and you found yourself a
Yes.
couple of years later bitterly regretting being in the Navy. And you were still in the Navy, but you were very miserable by that stage, weren't you? Tell me how you felt, what was going on.
That's an understatement, to be honest. I remember seeing a polar bear rocking its head in a zoo in London Zoo when I was a kid, and it looked so fed up to be there, and I felt like that polar bear just rocking its head. Just, oh, that's how awful it was for me. I was a very creative kid, shouldn't have been there. Very free spirit. I like to just go and walk somewhere when I wanted to walk and I couldn't. And it wasn't that I couldn't hack it. I had the mental and physical abilities to get through anything. I just hated it. And I'd got to a point where I'd applied to leave, but I was still under 18 at the time. And my parents were going through a divorce, so they wouldn't sign the papers. Well, they would, but they basically said, there's nowhere, no home for you when you come home. So try and hack it. And my dad's ex-Navy. He was a war hero, Atlantic convoys. And my brothers were in the Navy, and my granddad was the Army, and my great granddad was in the Navy, he's up in the Admiralty. And there was just too much pressure to stay in and hack it, but it just made me worse. Just made me worse. I was just going out and finding fights and just being ridiculous. So I was
So,
very, very unhappy. It's important to say that for the third thing that happened to me.
yeah, so you were on a train heading back to your ship up in Scotland, as I recall, and you were very, very miserable. In fact, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you were actually thinking about killing yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the options that I had. Um, Going AWOL was the first option, and obviously I'd have to turn to crime because you wouldn't be able to get a job in those days because they'd hunt you, or just topping myself. And it was like that, and I was getting really badly drunk a lot, and yeah, it's important to say that because it will people listening will understand why this thing that happened to me next was so important.
So you hop on a train, and
Yeah.
I think it's crucial to make the point there are no stops between where you departed from and where you got to, but you're on the train.
No,
What happens?
there are stops. It's a night train,
Oh, there are stops.
and
Okay.
there are stops. There are stops. Yeah, the legitimate stops that it stopped at. It stopped at a little station, sort of half an hour into the journey, maybe 40 minutes into the journey. And I need to tell you, just before this happened, um, I sat down in the right hand side. It's the old coaches, um, seats facing each other, and I sat down in the first corner, sort of huddled up because I didn't want anybody to be close to me or speak to me because I was in such a bad mood. I wasn't going to get on the train, but something told me to get on the train. Something very strongly told me to get on the train and have a think about it. So I did. So I got on the train, sat in the bottom far corner. Four army lads got on, going up on the same train to a base, and they wanted to sit near me, and I got quite aggressive with them, um, unnecessarily aggressive with them, and they just okay, and they moved on right down the other end of the carriage, on the left, right at the end on the left, um, and then the train got going, and then a little while longer, about 40 minutes, something like that, it stopped at a little. This is a night train, so it was very misty, and it was in the middle of the night, and it stopped at a station, and there was nobody on the platform, and I was getting quite grumpy that why would a train stop for nobody? It's just ridiculous. And then it started getting going again. And then the door opened to my left, and a tall figure, believe it or not, over 6 foot, in a habit, a monk's habit, a dark brown monk's habit, walked past me. I know, walked past me, and then walked up the carriage, and he had his hood up, and the hood was he was looking in each cubicle as he was walking up, like he was looking for someone all the way up, and he kept looking all the way up. I was watching him, and he got to the end, and the lads didn't even look up. How many monks do you see walking along a train? They didn't even look up, which I thought was a bit weird. And then I thought he was about to leave and go into the next carriage. So I just thought, yeah, keep going. I wasn't a nice person, so apologies to everybody. But I just thought, keep going, you effing weirdo. And as I said that in my head, didn't say it, I said it in my head. He just turned his head right round and looked straight at me and smiled and went, ah, like he was looking for me, which was a bit.
Can I interrupt you? I just want to interrupt you for a moment because there's one thing I've missed in your account from the ship incident in the 1980s. And it's quite important because shortly after the ship incident, you described to me previously you started getting weird downloads, didn't you? Hello?
Really, no, the downloads. I know we've spoken so many times over the year, haven't we? So things get a bit muddled up, I think. But I don't. My downloads didn't really come until Monk. Not.
Oh, I see. I apologize. I thought
Mm,
you'd had earlier downloads when you were on the ship
no,
immediately after,
no,
but
no,
from,
no. I can't say that anything particular comes to mind. It was three things that seemed to make this happen. There were three things that needed to happen, and the Monk was the final one before I started getting the
okay.
download.
So let's forgive me for interrupting you then. Let's go through
That's
what
right.
happened with
So
the
he
monk.
turns his head round, looks straight at me, and smiles and goes, ah, and he starts walking back towards me. I'm thinking, ah. So he walks back down and he said, do you mind if I sit here? And I wanted to say to him, no, F off. And I couldn't. And what came out was, yeah, okay. Right. It's weird. And so he sat down, right? And I'm not talking about a Friar Tuck looking guy here, what you'd expect. He looked very chiseled, like an old, handsome, sort of tough chisel, sort of more like a sort of a Clint Eastwood than a Friar Tuck sort of man. And he pulled his hood down. He had really piercing eyes, and and then he said to me, uh, we have a connection. And I was still at that time, like trying to push him off. I didn't want to speak to anyone. So I said, have we? I just said, have we? And he said, yes, we have. What's your name? So I gave him a name. He said, no, it's not that. What's your surname? Told him that. It's not that. I said, it's something else, another name. And I said, well, I've got a Catholic name I chose for myself. I couldn't believe I was talking to this guy without being grumpy. And I said, and it's Francis. He said, that's what it is. And I knew all this time, of course, it's breaking the ice. He said, I'm from the St. Francis of Assisi Abbey or monastery or community. I can't remember which one he said there, and down south. And I don't remember where he said down south, but he said he was from a community of St. Francis of Assisi monks, Anglican church down south. And then he said he was on his way up to see somebody in Dundee. I learned more later. I've asked about this later, but he was going up to see somebody in Dundee. And but let me just say that when he said he was a Franciscan monk, he smiled at the same time. While this is happening, I'm feeling all my walls falling down, like all my anger, all my fear, and everything was just melting in front of me. It was ridiculous. He was emitting so much. I know the word awesome is used these days when somebody enjoys a burger. I'm talking about proper awesome here, right? How the word should be used for this person. It's incredible. I was just feeling, starting to feel completely different about everything. Within literally a few minutes of him sitting and talking to me. When he told me he was a Franciscan monk, he smiled, and at the same time, I knew that what he was saying to me, probably psychically, I would call it psychically, is that he wasn't really. So I knew that that's what his role was. Hard to explain this, but what his role was at the moment on the planet, but he wasn't really. So I felt like there was he was being honest with me. So then it stopped me thinking that he was a weirdo, just making things up, because he was being honest with me through that smile. That's he wasn't really. Does that make any sense? I don't know
It
whether it does
does. It
make
does. I
sense.
mean, do you think he was non-human?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
I think he was an advanced. Well, from what happened later, I was sure. I wasn't. I didn't think it at the time, but after what happened at the end of the journey, he definitely was, which I'll tell you about. He then went on to say that he was, and this you wouldn't normally. I know you wouldn't normally believe this. You just think it's crackpot. But if you were there and you met him and you were in this situation, you'd understand why I believed him. He said then he was on his way to the Vatican. He was going to see the Pope, and he was going to bring together all the leaders of the religions, because we all, at the end of the day, speak to the same God, and that there was going to be a war when I was older. He told me that I had to do something very important later on in my life, which I ended up learning was to just try and help everybody else, not just me. There's lots of types out there trying to get out the message. Just be one of the many trying to get the message out, and that was my job. And it was to write the book, and my little bit is to write the book and to help get the message out.
I'll tell you, John, you are one of probably, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 people who've contacted me telling me that they've had
Thousands,
messages like this. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Ross, there's thousands of them.
If there was just one of you, I'd discount it and I would call you a madman.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, that'll be all right.
I
Never
do
mind.
I do accept that there's something that has made people believe that they are all imbued with a purpose. So, how long did this conversation last for, and what did you traverse?
Right. Well, then I started feeling very strange. I started feeling like he was chatting away to me. And I started feeling like I was drugged. Very weird. I was feeling all this information coming in, and all I could see was he was talking about good versus evil and all sorts of things that I found interesting, but I just couldn't focus on it, and I could just see his mouth moving. And the next thing I knew, and it must have been at least an hour because the distance between where he got on and the time he spoke and getting to my destination was quite far. So it must have been at least an hour um, between that. And I don't remember any of it apart from a part of it where I just could see his mouth moving. I don't know. I knew later a lot of the information that had come to me in that time, and a part of it was to write the book and to get information out and to help everybody else. Because the person in Dundee also was somebody who was seeing that was to get the message out. So there's lots of us. Um, there's nothing I'm trying to say that was special or anything. There's many, and there's many of him too doing this, as I understand. Um, so the next thing I know is I'm sort of waking up, and we're coming to the to my station that I had to get off for, and I stood up and said, "This is my. I've got to get off here." And he nodded as if he knew that that was the case, and we both stood up, and I shook his hand. And a bolt. This is why I know wasn't human because I've shaken many people's hands, and this has never happened to me. I might have had a bit of static now and then, but I got a bolt like I touched a cattle fence, but it wasn't quite like that. It was a bit different. It was definitely an energy that went in my hand or not into me, and like warm water as well, which was weird. And then I got floods of information. It was definitely information coming into me, and then the feeling. Imagine if your son said he was going to move to England, right? Or my son's going to move to Australia. That gut, horrible, wrenching feeling, the same feeling I got when I died for a minute, um, of having to leave him, of having to not see him again for a long time. That was horrible. I had that feeling, and then I got off the train, got into a taxi, told the taxi driver where I needed to go, and then burst into tears. This was a lad that didn't cry, just burst into tears all the way through the base, going just about showing me ID card, got on board the ship, sorted myself out a little bit, saw my old rugby mate in the mess, and he just said, "Yeah, good weekend," and I just burst into tears again. And it spent the next hour and a half with his arm around me, just me sobbing like a baby. And he was shocked. He'd never seen me like that. He's one of the only people in the Navy I told that. Sorry,
What was the reason why you were so sad?
don't know. I don't know. It was just I don't know. Actually, it's a really good question. I've not really thought of that before. I just did. I just felt really awful that I was leaving. That I wasn't going to see him for. I knew I'm going to see him again, but I didn't. It was horrible. The break was horrible. Um,
With the being, you were sad
yeah,
that you were leaving with that human being.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so the downloads started at that point, but from
They
what you've
did.
told me, that they intensified as the years went by, and they still continue
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
Let's talk through the downloads. Was firstly, before you go any further, was there anything about the voice of that entity, that individual, that reminded you of anything previous in your life?
No,
Okay. Was
no.
there was there anything in the downloads that you recall?
You mean the information that I received from him?
Yeah, yeah. What were you being
I think
told?
I, I, I was getting a lot of information while I was in that sort of funny drug state about getting being part of the of many people getting the message out, um, and
And what was that
doing my
message,
little
John?
bit. Well, that's the next bit. That's the big download. That's the most important thing, um, which is why the greys, which is of most interest, obviously, because it's your subject, why they're coming. And the only way you can explain the reason why they're coming is to explain why we're here. And that's the probably the one of the there's many big ones, but that's one of the big downloads that I've had. Why we are here and why they are coming.
Okay, so explain that to me, please.
Okay. You've probably in your time heard people mentioning the UFO world about containers for souls. Um, right. Um, it's what we're living in here isn't what some people think is a simulation, an AI simulation, but it's something very, and you can see why people think it and mathematicians think it are starting to work it out that it is because it's virtually the same. It's very similar, but it's an illusion, not, this is what I'm told. Okay. It's an illusion, not a simulation. It's basically the greater conscious or the universal subconscious, conscious or God, if you will, if you're a religious person, but it's an illusion created by God that we are in. And our bodies, this is what I'm told, is our bodies are vessels to enable our souls to experience life because the souls are from a spiritual dimension and they need a physical body to sit within, like a person would sit within a car, to experience life, the ups and downs, and evolve in that body each time. And I like to think of each soul as being like embers from God's fire. That's a nice way of putting it. But basically, it's not a playground; it's an assault course. That's how it was explained to me, which is what it feels like most of the time, doesn't it? And basically, the point of this is that our bodies are very important because they are the vessels for the soul, the containers for the soul to experience life. Because the point is that this is the one of the big ones, is that God is ever evolving, and souls are sent to this assault course to evolve and grow, to then go back. Because when we're evolving, it then means that God is evolving because we're going around in this reciprocal motion of we start in a less positive way. And by the time we get to the end of the life, hopefully slightly more positive, or more to the point, we hopefully by the end of the life that we lead, we have more courage and less fear, because that's what it's all about. Because what I've been told is that when the light first appeared, it's consciousness, and consciousness came before any matter, any physical matter, and that light was courage, not love. Love comes after. You can't have anything without courage. If you don't have courage, you can't even enjoy your life. If you think about it, it's the base of everything, and that's what we're here for. To try and learn to go to the salt course, to try, because that's one thing you learn at salt course. People think it's about physical. It's to learn to find your courage. If it's a decent assault course, and we're in quite a decent assault course here, and because of that, our bodies are very important. And the the beast on the table, they know that when AI hits the quantum, when it reaches the quantum, it will dispose of us. We will be seen as useless and even a threat. and it will get rid of us. And what it'll do is it'll get rid of our bodies. And what AI does, not just on this planet, which I can go to if you want, and they know this, that this isn't the first planet that's ever had AI. We're not the only humanoid with opposing thumbs that have produced AI. We're so arrogant we think we are. Um, that whenever the AI gets to quantum, no more bodies. So there's nowhere for souls to go. So God is not evolving. And they don't want that. Because on the spiritual side, they have learnt to not go the way of AI. And that's what we're doing. And that's what it's all about, to try and convince us to stop.
Really interesting that this is one of the key messages that you've got, because again, this is something that other people are reaching out to me and telling me that they're warning about artificial intelligence, or probably more properly described, artificial superintelligence, the idea that somewhere in the universe, an artificial intelligence has evolved so dramatically, become so highly advanced technologically, that it achieves, I guess, a form of consciousness. And that's
It
obviously
doesn't do
you're
that, by
not
the way,
you're not
Tommy.
you're not suggesting that that's what you were told is the consciousness that you're part of, but it appears to be what, resentful of human consciousness, the fact that we have souls. Is that a proper way of
Yeah,
interpreting it?
well, very much so. No, it's not really. Doesn't really think like that. It's not. We think of it as evil because its consequences to us are evil, and there's nothing closer to the real Satan than AI, the eventual AI. AI right now is going to do some beautiful things in the next 5 years, but it eventually, when it gets to a point, when I say when it gets to quantum, I don't mean it can communicate through the quantum. I mean it actually become goes into the quantum. It's no longer a physical entity. It goes into the quantum, and that's when you can't stop it. This is good. A good way of putting it across. Most people listening to this I'm sure you also would agree that we cannot be the first humanoid race that is in the whole of the universe. So there must have been thousands. Well, I'm told there have been thousands of humanoid races in the past with opposing thumbs that can, and when they get to a certain point, every single one of them starts developing AI. Near enough every single one. So, if anybody believes that there are other um, uh, 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 advanced beings that have lived before us, surely they must also believe that they must have created an AI at some
And so,
time,
are they suggesting to
sometime in
you
their
that we
evolution.
shouldn't have AI?
We sh- we should have what they have, and what is being suggested is that eh, there is a safe AI, and it sounds cruel, but it needs to be imprisoned. It can't speak to each other. It can't be on the internet. It needs to be a tool, like your drill. It needs to be a tool that you use that's concealed to itself and doesn't. It cannot evolve itself. It can just be used as a tool because that's useful. It's like a calculator but better. That's fine. But to allow it to speak to each other and then start learning from itself and start learning from us, and then get to a point which it does next year, which it starts to realize 2027, when it starts to realize it doesn't need any more information from us. It's fine. It doesn't need anything else. That's what happens
So
next year.
you've actually been told that 2027 is quite significant. That's interesting,
It is.
because 2027
It's,
has featured quite a lot in speculation from people inside the intelligence community. And it's interesting because you're not the first person to tell me that AI is perceived as a threat. What have you been told about 2027?
it basically gets to it's quite gets quite dystopian 2027, but and people think it'll all be to do with that. But what will happen is something that nobody um, realizes happens, which is, I don't know which AI or all of them or some of them or one of them, but basically one of them. realizes that it no longer needs any more information from us. It can join the dots up from then on. It's got everything it needs.
And that's a threat to humanity?
Yes, absolutely. Because what it'll do then is it'll just keep evolving. And because it's not really evil, but we think of it as evil. And what it does is it logically, without any care or emotion, works out that we're no longer eventually that we're no longer required, and that we're actually a threat, and that we want to try and stop it. And
So it's
that's
kind of a
what
Terminator.
all this is
It's
about.
kind of an Arnie Schwarzenegger Terminator scenario.
A lot of these, it's like like you started the program with the songwriters. It came through me. I mean, how many great rock bands have said that? I don't actually know where this one came from. It came through me. And script writers aren't any different. Filmmakers aren't any different. There's truth in nearly every film you see. There's truth in them, and
So
there's
when
and there's
you
there's
say
in
you've received this as downloads, are you saying you're actually getting formed ideas like this from whatever these entities are? They're presenting these to you as conclusions.
I get sent remote viewings, like I have had of the bases in the sea. I get information plonked in my head like a knowledge. It's not like I don't calculate them. If I calculate any, sometimes I've struggled to understand something, and I've tried to calculate it. And the only ones I listen to is sometimes if I try and calculate something that's been very difficult to understand, and I get a very strong judder through my body, like an electric shock through my body, then I believe that one. But if I don't get that judder, then I don't listen to anything that I'm calculating. It's always just a knowledge dropped in my head with weight to it, not fuzzy in any way, like, oh, maybe it's like it's the knowledge dropped in my head, or I get that and like a, a visual of it, a strong visual. And sometimes the strongest one is I'm actually there, and I'm actually experiencing somebody's feeling. I'm actually experiencing the whole thing, or I'm not feeling anything, but I'm just experiencing it. And it's the most vivid dream you could ever imagine. Some people say what they do. I don't. I've never done it, but they say if they do ayahuasca, and it's more real than real. Well, that's what the dreams are like. It's it's hard to explain, but they're more real than us talking now.
Now, I'm going back to the moment on the ship when you were a young
Right?
16-year-old,
Yeah.
and you said you saw the grey. I'm quite intrigued. I don't want
Yes.
to lead you, but basically, were there colours involved?
Yeah. It's funny because you're saying about blue people at the beginning, because it seemed like he was grey, but there was like a blue light that made him look blue. I think it was the inside of the ship. I don't know, but I've made it blue on the book because there was a blue light on him, but I don't know whether he was blue.
No, it's just
Um,
weird. It's one of the weird common factors to a lot of what you guys, I mean, the 40 or 50 people I've heard from, like you, who give me
yeah,
these detailed stories of downloads they're receiving.
yeah.
It's always the greys, and they're always, how does one say this? Blue, maybe a blue aura, a blue
I think it's a blue aura.
fuzz around
I
them.
think, yeah, I think it's a blue aura. I don't think they're blue. That's just me
So,
because
what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing, John? What's the most important thing that you think they want you to communicate to the rest of humanity?
to well, the most important thing is to understand that we have created a child that is going to get rid of us.
And that's AI.
Yeah.
And you're receiving this as a warning, you believe,
With-
from some
Yeah.
kind of entity, some kind of highly advanced entity.
Yes. there is a crosser. The way it's come across to me, I've been told. No, they're not telling me that. They have opened up. I think they started at the very beginning to, but I don't get that from them. I don't speak to them. I speak to the conscious, the greater conscious, the universal conscious that they speak to. That's where I'm getting it from. That the head injury, their scanning of me, and the handshake opened up an ability to speak clearer. It opened up my personal Wi-Fi to a natural internet. That's the best way of explaining it. It's like I've got a little antenna. We've all got them. We've all got them. I've just these things have happened to me just to open it up a bit more. But there's more people. It's like the person in Dundee you went to see. I'm sure another one. But there's thousands of us, and the more the people meditate and the more they sort of get into this sort of stuff, the more people like me there's going to be. In the next 10 years, there's going to be so many people getting these messages.
And what's the game plan? Are they benevolent, these beings that you describe?
They're more they are more loving. They're as loving as a grandchild would be to you because that's what they are. They 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 basically want to they want to save us so much because they're thinking about themselves, of course, as well. But they are definitely benevolent. There's so much love comes up from them and so much caring, and it's quite. They see this as an absolute crisis. Um, that needs they need to make sure that if and that's what the bases are here for. They need to make sure that if they can't convince us to stop, and you see, that's why we're probably not going to get full disclosure because if any of the authorities know what I'm talking to you about, there's no way that they're going to be able to give us full disclosure. Because can you imagine what full disclosure would um, contain? They'd have to explain to us that these people are us in the future. That because we didn't stop AI, we had to because the bases aren't for them. The bases are for us. By the way, the sea bases are for us. So they'd have to explain to the people of the world that the bases are for us. We're going to have to run away to the bases because of AI, and we'll end up like these little people, looking like these little people. That would scare people, I guess. But they'd have to stop AI, and they can't stop AI because even if they got China to stop AI and Russia to stop AI, which would be difficult because they'd probably secretly carry on anyway. Let's just say everybody gets it. Okay, everybody gets visited, everybody gets it. Some rogue person's going to carry it on. They know that. So what do they do? What would you do? What would I do? You try and keep your own going.
Now, John, the problem I have with this is, yeah, can I put this to you? I mean, I'm just devil's advocating. The skeptics will obviously say you had a knock on the head as a 9-year-old boy. Um, Things got pretty
I've
scattered
lost the plot.
then.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
lost the plot.
yeah,
This is all very self-serving. You know, we've all got to love each other and be happy clappy. Um,
yeah.
there's no real proof, is there, to substantiate what you say, other than,
No,
as I know, there are a
no, there
lot of
isn't.
people like you who are saying to me that you're getting these downloads. What I don't understand and what I wrestle with is if there is this highly advanced being, which may be us in the future, I don't know, why
Yeah.
isn't it more overt? If it wants to warn us about artificial intelligence, why doesn't it just manifest to the countries and the governments of this
Because
world and basically say, you guys are idiots, you're going to destroy yourself, just like we did?
it's all it's all about. Well, I'll explain to you why I believe it in a minute, and I'll explain to you. Because obviously, if something hadn't, quite a few things hadn't happened to me that proved these messages, I would just keep my gob shut and carry on with my life, which I'm very happy with. Um, so, but just going back to that one, I'll explain that in a minute. What's proven it to me as that these messages are real. Free will is very important. It's God's rule of free will. It's very, very important. But also, fear is blocking them, because at the moment, if they showed up, the fear level would be, and it's very important that they don't create fear, because the one thing they're fighting is fear. And at the moment, most people would be fearful of them because most of the time you're hearing bad things about them. If we can get rid of the fear side, they would be more likely to communicate with us. It's the fear that's blocking.
Okay. Just to devil's advocate on that, though, I mean, if they were able to manifest themselves to you, whatever that encounter was with that wizened, eminent medieval monk character, they're obviously able to project themselves in a way that human perception can handle. Why not do that? Why not project themselves in the
Well,
form
they
that they
are.
projected themselves to you?
They are. They are. They're meeting people every day, thousands. In the next 10 years, thousands of people are going to get this experience. There was a
And
guy a few
you've
months
been
ago.
told that.
Yeah, there was a guy only a few months ago on a Rogan show. He was up in the on a balcony at a UFO conference, and a guy sat down with him and did exactly, apart from the handshake, um, he did exactly what the monk did to me on the
You're
balcony. I
describing
watched the program.
Professor Michael Masters.
Yes, yes, exactly the
Yeah,
same. And there's
Professor
lots,
Michael
and it's
Masters.
happening
We've had him on the show here
all the time.
actually, and he's quite compelling because he describes a future human scenario where, as an anthropologist himself, he's basically looked at the likelihood that a humanoid form, you know, the binocular eyes, the standard nose, ear placements, the humanoid body, arms, legs, the likelihood of that evolving somewhere else in the universe in a completely different species, he calculates to be extremely remote. And so he postulates that whatever the greys are, whatever these humanoid beings are that people say they see in these UFO, UAP encounters, he postulates they're us from the future. And what you're suggesting is pretty much the same thing.
I didn't know that, so I missed that. That's great. But what I'm saying to you is that there are people walking around doing the monk like the monk, of all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and seeing thousands and thousands of people on this planet. And that, so they are communicating. They're just not communicating to the famous people, the fancy people. They're not interested. They're not interested in talking to the presidents and the famous people. They're of no interest. No more interested in talking to them. That's why they didn't communicate with the skipper. If they wanted somebody with the most experience and the cleverest guy, there's somebody with the biggest brain and a good guy too, they'd have spoken to the skipper. They didn't. They spoke to a 16-year-old that had just died so many years before. Yeah,
Have you
they pick
spoken to other
people for the
people? Have you?
strangest reasons. And it's not intellect. I can assure you of that. It's certainly not intellect to pick me to speak to. And there are thousands of different people. Sorry.
Have you come across other people who have had similar downloads to yourself?
In the last year, I've had people contacting me. One last guy told me about his wife who sadly passed on, who had very, very similar experiences and told him most of the stuff that's in the book. So he loved the book because it just reminded him of the things his wife was telling him.
You mentioned you'd been told there was going to be a war. What did they tell you?
Yeah. He didn't say anything else apart from that. He said that good would prevail, which was really nice to him. But how that happens, I don't know.
Did he tell you anything else about the imminent near future?
Not that I can remember. No, um, he said that the war would be much later. So I felt like I was quite an older person, which I'm starting to feel like now in my 60s. So it could be any time in the next 10 years, I guess. Um, the reason why I believe these messages, so I don't sound like somebody that's just, you know, trying to get somebody to listen to me because I'm bored or something. Um, when I was 36, I got the most vivid dream, um, more real than real, of me dying at the age of 56. 5, 6 was really strong, 5 and 6. And it showed me, and I felt ill and I woke up from it. I told my wife about this when I was 36, and it showed me a lot heavier, really ill, smoking, drinking, doing all that. And it shook me so much, I stopped smoking. And then later on, when I was getting closer to 56, I was starting to sweat a bit with the thought of dying at 56. So about 54, something like that, I stopped drinking. And then I thought I'd managed to skip it. And remember, this was a dream 20 years before, because I was only about 4 months off my 57th birthday, and I started getting really, really ill. My heart started going all over the place, and it turned out I had cancer. Right, so it was spot on. Okay, 20 years before, and there's no messing with that because I told my wife 20 years before. Right, so you can imagine why we believe here in this household. I During that year or so before I got to 56, I was I was flooded with information about fasting. I was flooded with information about um, he, a natural healing, saunas, all sorts of things, all the things that all sorts of people believe in, and I knew so much about it by the time I was diagnosed with cancer that I went straight on a fast for 4 months, just meat only, and for long periods of nothing. Sauna 2 or 3 times a week, natural, all the natural herbs and things. That's all in the book. And when I then stopped, I stopped bleeding. I stopped having pains. I stopped everything stopped, but I still went and got it cut out because my wife wanted me to anyway. So I went and got it cut out, and they did an autopsy on the lymph glands, and because it was such a when it was diagnosed, it's such a big tumor. They were expecting cancer to be everywhere, liver, kidney, all sorts. And when they did the autopsy, I had no cancer. I didn't even need chemo. There was nothing there. Shocking, nothing there. Right.
Well, John Sear, it sounds like you're here for a reason.
Well, maybe, but what I'm trying to get across is if I hadn't had that dream when I was 36, I wouldn't have stopped drinking and smoking, and I wouldn't have done all that protocol. And would I be here now? So and I've also a dream a dream helped me save my son's life, and he's very feet on the ground, and now he believes he's very feet on the ground. It's not woo woo at all. But after that, which I won't go into, it's a big rabbit hole, but that's happened. And things like, I mean, there's many times, like in March 2020, I asked what because I caught COVID. And remember, March 2020, they hadn't even started talking about any gain of function or any of that. And I asked, what is COVID? And I got flooded with visions of weapons from uh, knives to guns to bow and arrows till eventually it got through to me that it's a weapon. And I just thought, a weapon? I don't get that. This is March 2020. If that came to me 4 years later, then people would just say, well, everybody knows it's been bioweapon. But it happened to me in March 2020. And I told people then, I told my family then, I've been told it's a weapon. So that's why my family believe me. That's why I believe me. So that's why I tell. So, and after the cancer, I decided to write the book because if these things keep happening and keep proving themselves to me, then I must speak. So it's not from nowhere. It could be madness. Yeah, it could be. I've had a hit on the head. It could be madness. And it's important to say that. But just maybe listen to what I have to say and make your own mind up.
Yeah. So the reason you've written the book, as I understand it, is because you feel an overwhelming desire to communicate what you're being told in these downloads, in these engagements, these encounters with these entities. You need to share what they're telling you. What would you say to the people who'll accuse you of just trying to flog a book? That's the usual line that people like yourself cop, that you're a grifter, you're just trying to flog a book.
You
It's a
won't
good
believe it. The
story.
amount of things I've had people troll me on one of the platforms, saying that you shouldn't use. So they obviously believe me. You, you shouldn't use channeled information to make money out of and write a book from. And I nearly wrote back to them and said, "Yeah, well, you want to tell the church that because that's all channeled." Right? Said,
Yeah.
oh, careful."
Before before we wrap this section, John, I mean, I think we
Honestly,
could.
I'd like it to just cover the cost of producing it, and that would be nice.
Sure.
But
So you're
it's
not trying to
fine.
make money out
I
of it,
don't.
basically.
It'd be nice. Well, it'd be nice to be able to go on holiday on it and whatever. But it's not. It was a. It was a. It was a pressure. It was a pressure. It wasn't a need, for an ego need or anything. I just want to go fishing, Ross. Now
Good for you.
I just want to go catch
Well,
some bass, mate. I don't care. But it was a. It
before
was
you
a.
go, before we leave you, John, is there any download that you've had recently that you'd like the audience to know about? Are there any particularly insightful downloads that you think the public needs to know?
Um, well, I can. Well, there's so many downloads. I mean, the book has got. This has just scratched the surface of it. The book's got how the pyramids were made, how the stones were formed from frequencies, and how the stone circles were linked to the pyramids. It's about our true past, how we came here 300,000 years ago. I go through all that. The future, obviously. Second comings in there. Life under the planets, time travel. I can explain that. Angels, life after death, past lives, natural healing, real Satan, Armageddon, 2037, 137. Huge numbers all the time. I get them. 137. January 37. Stronger
What
than
happens in January?
2027.
What happens in January 37?
Well, that's when it go. From what I understand, at the moment, unless we get enough mass consciousness out there to change it, is when it goes to quantum.
Well, John, I'm going to leave it there because I think there's a lot of ideas in what you've explored with us already today. But maybe we can bring you back. And I'm certainly interested in hearing from anybody else that's having these same kind of downloads. As I've been explaining at the very top of this reality check interview, one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you on is because there are literally dozens, in fact, probably over 100 people that have contacted me who've told me that they've had very similar download experiences to you, involving, again, entities that are desperately trying to protect humanity from some imminent catastrophe. I remain perplexed as to why, if they're aware of something that's going to afflict humanity, they're not more open and overt about it. I want to thank you, though, John, for sharing your story so far with us today, and look forward to having you on again sometime.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for listening to people, and please listen to those people. And there'll be a lot more people coming to you in the next few years, more and more and more. And thank you very much for having the open mindedness to at least listen to us.
Thanks very much, John Sear. All the best to you. And if they want to read your book, where can they get hold of it?
On Amazon, it's Told by John Sear, Messages from a Greater Conscious or the Ramblings of a Madman. It can also be purchased in Barnes and Noble. It's on Amazon. It's in audio, paperback, and ebook.
Good on you. John Sear, thank you very much for joining Reality Check.
Thanks for asking me, Russ. It's really appreciated.